All right. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast interview. And we are joined today by another amazing rock star guest. Just to give you guys a little backstory of our guest today. So our guest is a team leader, brokerage owner. Her team is consistently ranked the #1 female team in Charleston for sales and in the top 1% overall. Top 10% of Zillow Premier Agents, has over 600 Zillow reviews. It's been featured on our HGTV magazine, recognized best real estate agent in Charleston by Low County Parents Magazine, certified short sale and REO expert. Also, in addition to growing this amazing real estate business, is also a mother of 4 kids. So really stoked and honored to have Mickey Ramey to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Joshua. I'm so glad to be on this with you. It is like surreal a little bit. I've listened to your voice. You know, your voice is kind of in my head from listening to your podcast. So it's really cool to be on it.
Yeah, no, I'm honored. You know, I number one, I appreciate you, all your support and watching and listening to these episodes. And, I'm so glad you reached out to me. When I read your bio, I'm like, heck yeah, we got to get you on. And I'm excited to dive into this because also, what those watching, listening didn't hear before we hit the record button, we're in this real estate contraction right now as a market overall. I mean, we're back to about 2008 level closings, so even though prices are up in most areas, there's been a transaction volume contraction, but you and your team are growing. I mean, you guys, common thing I'm hearing from agents is, oh, everybody's business is down. No, I mean, there are some out there that are growing and crushing it. So, I'm really excited to dive into all that and what you guys are doing and what you've done, what you're doing. But before we begin that, I'm always intrigued in our guest journeys that led them here in the first place. So if you wind the clocks, pre-2008, before you got in the business, like what did you do before real estate and what ultimately led you into getting into this industry?
So I, like a lot of agents that I hear are successful, I was a teacher before I got into real estate. So I taught middle school in Charleston, South Carolina, where I live now. I was also a high school guidance counselor. So I have a master's degree in counseling, which is extremely useful in real estate because things are always falling apart and you got to calm people down and bring them back together. But I was a teacher for 4 years here. I was a high school guidance counselor for 3 years. And to bring me into real estate, I actually married a medical student. So right after I graduated from college, my college boyfriend and I got married. And so we've been married 27 years this month. And I married this poor medical student. And so we found a house, we rented together, but we thought about buying a house. When I was 22, had my first job, he was a student, we were going to get parents' help to co-sign on a loan. And we were going to buy this house in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina for $100,000. That was more money than I'd ever thought about spending in my whole life. Long story short, I'm in a realtor's office. She's saying, you got to make an offer on this house right now or it's going to be gone. I am talking to my fiance then saying, well, we need to maybe think about this overnight, sleep on it. I'm crying. He's on the phone with his parents. They're like, you shouldn't do this. It's too fast. And that was my first experience in real estate. I'm like crying in a realtor's office, getting pushed into making an offer on a house. And I was like, this is horrible. So I rented. Like that terrified me. I rented for 2 years. And then I convinced our landlord to sell me the property that we were living in. So at 24 years old, I became a homeowner. And I'm proud to say I've never rented a property since. And then I've gotten into real estate. So I've just been a homeowner since I was what I think, kind of a young kid.
Yep. No, I love it. So then what was it, because teacher, high school guidance counselor, and then making that, that's a big move to, okay, now I'm going to jump into real estate, no job security, none of that. What enticed that move? What led you to be like, okay, I'm not going to go down this career path anymore. I'm going to pivot over here.
So it was my own personal transaction. So I told you that I married a medical student. So he was poor, but they move a lot. So we bought that house during his medical school experience. And then we got moved by medicine to his residency in Winston-Salem. So I sold the house in Charleston with an agent, bought a house with an agent in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And then with an agent, we sold that house in Winston-Salem. We moved for his fellowship training to Tampa, Florida. And then I actually had a license in Florida. So we sold our own house at that point. And that's really when my real estate journey began. Like I had so many personal transactions and one went well, one went well. So I decided, you know what, I need to be a realtor. I can do better for people than was done for me in my real estate transactions. And hey, I kind of got an idea. Why don't I help other medical families like me figure out how to move when medicine moves you? So that's what I base my business on.
Yep. I love it. So then at this point, so it sounds like, when you jumped into real estate and started going full time, it was what, 2008?
It was 2000. So actually, I got my license in 2004, but I was a new mom at that point. I didn't have childcare, didn't have anything. So I got licensed in 2004. And I was a real estate agent in Florida for a year. And then I took a broker class, and I was actually a broker in Florida. But then I moved to South Carolina, where you have to be a real estate agent or a real estate licensee for 3 years before you can open a brokerage. So I put in another year here in 2007 as an agent, where I could just hang my license at a company. And then 2008, I decided to start my own business.
Yep. Love it. So then let's talk about that, right? Because 2008 was a gnarly time.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah. So, what did that look like? Because it's, things started falling off a cliff very fast, ended up being the worst housing market in recorded history as far as the US goes. What was that like? What was that, because I'm guessing that's a totally different experience than, what you had previously. And like, how did you adapt? How did you pivot? Kind of what took place during those times?
So my most vivid memories from 2008 were two things. So one, I started a new business. I had done just 4 transactions the year before that. So I came from a teacher, high school guidance counselor salary. So like, man, if I can make more than $35,000 a year in real estate, I'm crushing it. So I had a great perspective, coming from an education background. You don't get in real estate for the money because you're used to not making much money. So, I had that perspective. And the second thing I remember is in that market, and Joshua, you probably know this too, like I was showing houses back then, and in the same neighborhood, I could show 10 vacant houses that people hadn't been in. And if I were showing houses, I could show 40 houses to people in one area. There was so much inventory, and a lot of it was vacant. People had just left. They were going into foreclosure. It was just a sad time in the market. So buyers could get great discounts when they were ready to buy, but it took so long to show homes and help people make decisions because our inventory was huge at that point. It's totally opposite of what we're doing right now.
Yeah. I remember those. I think, I'd have to look at the numbers, but I think we peaked, at least here in Phoenix, close to about 15 months worth of inventory. Mm-hmm. Most markets right now are like under 2 months. Some are at 1 month, but just, 15 months of inventory was just, insane time. So
we're at 1.5 in Charleston. We've got 1.5 months of inventory. So just polar opposite.
Yeah. So then is that when, because I know that you got short sale and REO certified. Is that when that came about, or did that come about after?
No, that was at that time, because I realized I was doing people a disservice if I was trying to help them do a short sale or an REO, because I just didn't have that education. So I got it, and I sold a couple of short sales. Fortunately, in my business model that I had and working with medical people, a lot of times they were on their way out of medical training into a higher income bracket, so they didn't have to short sale. It was also a sad situation. You would sit at the closing table and you knew the check that was coming to you was money and that your client was not getting any money out of the transaction if they were a seller. So, that was hard too. Now the sellers, 99% of the time make way more money than I do in a transaction. So that was another specific part, but I did get that designation because I just didn't know what I was doing in short sales and foreclosures. And I really had, I was a teacher, I have like zero business experience. So I learned through the school of hard knocks.
Yep. No, I love it. So then now with your niche at that time, being helping medical professionals relocate, I mean, is that still your primary niche today? Has that kind of been your niche that's carried through your career? Or is
Yes,
diversified?
I've always done that. And prepping for this podcast, I noted that, and this is interesting, just studying my business too. In 2018, I did 28 transactions with medical professionals, and that was just me personally, for over $200,000 in commissions. And that was really amazing. And then 2019, I look back and I didn't track what I did that year. And then, 2020 was the market totally shifted again during COVID. And we still had a really strong presentation with that group. But the way that I get business from that group is I will go into the medical schools and residencies and lecture about real estate. But I wasn't able to go during the COVID years and lecture. I had to go more of a webinar style like we're doing today, and it just wasn't as popular. So my transaction volume with my main niche actually went down. So this year, I'm really starting to ramp that up again. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. So, with what has been, for those that are looking to niche down, because we've all, heard the saying the riches is in the niches, and especially in a market like this, it's, you want to be very targeted. So what has been, and what kind of advice would you have for those that are really looking to niche down? So this has been your niche for, this last, decade plus. I mean, how were you able to niche down? I know, your husband was, a medical student, but it still doesn't mean that, you just had a free pass to go out there and get it. Like, you still had to, I'm sure, go out there and build all this business. And, and the reason why I say that is I don't want people watching, listening to think of limiting beliefs as to why they can't do it. And maybe your situation was different.
Yeah, I so appreciate that you just said that, because a lot of people say, oh, you're a doctor's wife, that's easy for you. You know that your best friend is not using you as a realtor unless you talk to them about real estate. And everybody listening right now knows that painful story. Like, you just, think these people are around me, know I'm a realtor and they're going to use me. That's not true at all. So I had to create systems around the life that I lived. So in that niche, we created systems where we know fourth year medical students graduate. We know they go into residency. We know they go from zero income into making some money, and they're first time home buyers at that point. So that was the group we really targeted. I went in, I gave lectures in conjunction with a financial planner talking about student loan debt. I went in with a mortgage professional that talked about professional loans. Doctors can actually get 100% financing with doctor loans. So we went in and we gave lectures and said, you medical students, so much about medicine. Let us teach you about finances. So we did that. We would go in and do 1 or 2 lectures, and then I would do mailings to the incoming medical residents through residency coordinators, telling them about, I just want to be a resource to you. I hear that from you all the time, Joshua, about, I just want to be a resource. So I went at it, if you want to rent, if you want to buy, just let me be a resource. Call me, I'll help you learn the city and figure out the process. So I had really good luck with that and, got business that way. It wasn't just because I happened to be married to a physician.
Yep. No, I love that. So then, what kind of advice would you have? So when and whether it be, let's just say, maybe it's okay, I want to get in there and start working with divorce or bankruptcy attorneys and, not just begging for the business, but like you did, going in there and offering value and delivering value that then leads to those relationships. How did you approach it? And what would you give advice to others maybe watching this of how to approach, whether it be a reload department or whatever, and again, delivering that value like you did?
So I would go in and I would have information, like I would call it a community tour. So what I would do is have a little handout and say, I can give a community tour to the people that you're interviewing for your residency or your physician position here. So I go in with information and a little gift. So this is great advice to those of you on a budget, as I was when I first started on a super budget. I would go, this happens in March. So I would go in February to like a drugstore, like a Walgreens, CVS, wherever. I'd buy Valentine's Day candy half price. And I would go and take a little like cute little candy to the person that's hiring and some information. I would just say, hey, I would love to be a resource. Here's my information. Let me give a community tour of Charleston to the physicians that you're hiring. So that is what I started. And you can do that in any business that's hiring people.
Yep. So then, okay. So, you're doing those. How frequently are you doing those, those classes? Is this, like an annual thing, a monthly thing?
It's definitely not monthly. I will do it strategically during the year. So for the lectures, I will do one in the fall season because schools are usually off in the summer. So I don't waste my time doing anything then. But in the fall, I will do something in January. Everybody is trying to make plans and thinking about, their resolutions. I'm going to buy a house this year, all that stuff. So I'll go in January also. And then for medical students specifically, the match day that they have is in the middle of March. So I will always go in at the very beginning of March. So I would be top of mind. So I really did 3 in the fall, 1 in the winter, and 1 right before match day occurs.
Yeah. And I love how you didn't pitch it as, hey, I'm going to go teach them how to buy a house and so I can become their realtor. It's like, hey, we're going to teach them about financial education. We're going to teach them about, so it's a big value add, but then through that, you're positioning yourself as the authority figure, the expert for real estate that can facilitate that. But it wasn't just one-sided with just real estate.
Yes. And then I also, for this specific niche, I have a website called DrMoves.com where I would go and I'd point them to the website too. And it's DrMoves.com. And we would point people to that website. And it actually helps them do relocation throughout the country and learn about doctor loans and all of those things.
Okay. Yeah. That was going to be my next question is, has this expanded into like a nationwide referral network? Cause I got to imagine, it might be there for a period of time and then, are ongoing.
Yeah. The reason that I do this particular niche is because I try to get 3 deals out of 1 person. So they come and they buy when they're in medical school. And when they finish medical school, they'll buy as a medical resident. And then they'll sell that home when they finish their training. And then they'll move out of town. So that's a referral. So it'll be, I'll help them buy, I'll help them sell, and then I'll do a referral. So that is the plan. And all that happens within a 3 to 5 year period.
Yeah, gosh, that's so awesome. Yeah. Okay. So then so I guess before I get on to, some other topics here, is there anything, so that's kind of the upfront, right? But then from there, it's like, okay, well, we know with NAR stating that 88% of buyers and sellers say they love their agent, only 11% do a repeat transaction. So, going further with your system, to get those 3 transactions, I'm sure that then after that, you got to keep that relationship alive, what do you do after that to maintain that relationship to hopefully ensure that you get those 3 transactions?
Yes. So back in the day, I used Top Producer. Do you remember Top Producer?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I use that. It is a very antiquated CRM. I'm sorry if people use that, but that is like any CRM you use is a great CRM. But I switched to Follow Up Boss, which has a lot more just ease of use. So I am dedicated to my CRM. I'm dedicated to following up with people consistently. So along with once they become a buyer, they're in our CRM through that process. And they always, when they close as a buyer, they get an automatic home valuation tool that they get monthly through HomeBot, if people are familiar with HomeBot. So they'll get that report monthly about how much their home has increased in value and what their home is worth. And then I'll just check in with people like, oh my gosh, you guys, it's been so long since I've seen you, can you believe your home has gone up like $20,000 just since you bought it, and that sort of thing. So I'll have that conversation. And then we do client parties too. I love where I live, Charleston. We've got some very Charleston kind of things that we do here. So we have a low country boil, which is a bunch of shrimp and sausage and corn on the cob. And so we'll have an event of our low country boil in February, or excuse me, in the fall. And then we have an oyster roast. If you've ever been to an oyster roast, those are really fun. That's a Charleston thing. We do those in February. So 2 client events a year, and then following up with people through our CRM keeps us getting consistent repeat and referral business.
Yep. So yep, love it. So very intentional about maintaining, keeping those relationships alive. So then at what point did you start your team?
So my youngest daughter is 9. So I started 9 years ago, I remember. So I had a team, and my first hire, this might be encouraging to some young moms. My first hire was the nanny realtor, I called it, because they had to be somebody who was able to help me with my kids, and they had to be willing to do some real estate. I paid for this person's real estate license. So, they would rarely show houses for me, but if a kid was sick, something like that happened, I needed the nanny realtor to put on the realtor hat and go out and show property. And I had a couple of people in that position until I found somebody who was better at real estate than childcare. So at that point, I had that person transition, and I started my team with 1 buyer agent and a transaction coordinator.
Okay. So then what has been kind of the evolution, over that time? Because your team today, you're at what did you say earlier, 21 or 22 agents?
Oh, no, we don't have that many agents. In my company, I have 20 agents. On my team, we are just hiring a couple more. So I'm at 12 agents now on my team. So I have a couple of agents that have been on my team before, said they want to do their own thing. They're independent contractors within my company, but my team has certain production goals and certain requirements for getting leads and that sort of thing. So we have 12 agents, 2 transaction coordinators, and 1.5 ISAs.
Okay, perfect. So then, all right. So, and you own the brokerage, and then you got your team division inside there. So you got both. So a quick question with your personal niche with helping these doctors, is that business that you personally are just taking on, or does your actual team division help facilitate that?
So I've gotten to the point where my team is doing that. So that is really great. I still am in production. I do all of our listings, but if it is a buyer that's a physician, medical student, whatever, that is, my team handles that. So I don't work with buyers anymore. I just work with listings.
Yep. Love it. So, all right. So as team leaders, and I'm sure that, well, I shouldn't say I'm sure, I'm guessing and making an assumption here, but I could be wrong. So that maybe you experience this, but it can be very difficult, especially like when we have, when we get really good at a niche, it feels like our baby, right? It's like this, it's like a secondary child to us, right? And it can be very difficult to delegate and trust that same experience, especially when we work so hard to build it. And, how have you, what has worked effectively for you to be able to delegate this, special niche out that you've worked so hard to build and do it in a successful way, where you can ensure that those clientele is getting the experience that you want to be delivered?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I wonder if you can relate to me a little on this. Kind of got burnt out on showing houses, especially as your market better. In my mind, before I get in the car with people, I have 3 houses. I think they should buy one of them, and we have to see like 10. And I'm like, why are we looking at all these? I feel like you should buy one of these 3. So I realized that my buyer agents are really connected to the process more. They're able to slow down and really listen to people. And I have realized, it's taken a long time, but I have realized that people are attracted to my skills and my attention to detail, and not to who I am in particular, not to my name or, this person. They are attracted to my skill level and my attention to detail and my desire to help them. So if I have buyer agents that have those same desires to help others, and really have skills to do that, then they don't need me. They need a person who can do that.
Yeah. And then, so you might now be at that level of trust where you don't, and again, I'm making a lot of assumptions here, so correct me if I'm wrong at any stage here, but, but there's that inspecting what we expect, what was that like? What does that, maybe in the beginning as you're building this, or what does that also look like today to ensure that, again, they're not dropping the ball, that each of those clients is getting the service, that you need and want.
So I'm really available to all of my agents whenever they have questions. If they need me to hold their hand a little bit more through the process on the buy side, I do that with my newer agents. If they've been with me a while and I'm just at a consulting level, I do that. But I've had a couple of agents move to my brokerage and my team because their team leader wasn't always accessible and couldn't guide them through the process. So my ability to really counsel my team members, I think, helps me let go a little more, because I'm still, behind the scenes a lot.
Yep. Love it. So then now with your team, because I keep excuse me, I keep making all these assumptions here, but I'm making an assumption that, okay, the agents on the brokerage side, aren't getting these leads and they're out there building their own business, but then agents on your team are getting, the opportunities and the leads. Are you, and I can't remember if I asked this earlier, but are all of your team deals coming directly from, DrMoves, or is there other lead sources that you've since added for, like, just for your team?
Oh yeah, we have a lot of lead sources. And the thing that I realized when business was just, none of it, I actually remember listening to your podcast. I think it was like March or April 2020. And you were talking about like cutting expenses. And I'm thinking about, oh man, it's going down. It's all going to fall apart. We all need to be cutting expenses. And then the market blew up and we were selling things faster than we could keep up with. At that point, I was doing a lot of online leads, Zillow mainly, and I just was handling business that was pouring into me. And I actually did not do as good of a job with my niche market that got me into the business in the first place. So, we do a lot, and we would get referrals from friends and family, and we would just sell houses as fast as we could in 2020 and 2021. 2022 slowed down a little at the end of the year for us. So now we're really in a regrouping phase where I want to get back into, my main niche market. But I really haven't been as good as what I started in the business when the business was moving so fast.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize until you've experienced it, but growing pains can be harder than slow pains.
Yeah, for sure.
So then, let's talk about Zillow for a moment, cause you guys, done really good for Zillow, top 10% of Zillow Premier agents. What has been, cause I talked to so many agents, team leaders that end up losing money, or they're just trading dollars with Zillow. And then of course, talk to people that are obviously on the opposite end of that, but in order to create success with it, like, what does your process look like? What have you seen to be very successful when it comes to like working that specific lead source?
So I have seen a big change in our business. About 2 years ago now, I hired an inside sales associate. I never had an ISA before. And she might hear me through the wall right here, right now. She's on the other side working while I'm doing this podcast. But she has been an amazing asset to our team and online leads specifically. She holds our agents accountable to calling them and following up as quickly as they come in and categorizing them correctly. And we've got automations where we're texting and emailing, and our agents and our ISA are calling. We try to get people live on the phone. So that has been a transformation. And so we've taken on some other online lead sources too. And, I've been in the business a long time now. So I've got a database of about 24,000 contacts. So there's gold in there, and we just go through our database a lot too, in addition to our online leads.
Yep. Love it. So with these, Zillow leads and so Arizona, and it'd been years since I did any Zillow. I used to do a ton of Zillow.
Me too.
That's probably 15 years ago, right?
I've cut back a lot, Josh.
Yeah. And the reason why I cut back was because they used to charge us based on per click. So my average cost per lead at that time was like $17.
Yeah.
So my ROI was amazing. Well, then one day, Zillow comes in, I come in the office and like, oh, well, we decided we're going to charge differently. So now we're going to switch to impressions. Well, my lead costs tripled overnight. So my ROI, was massively impacted.
Oh, yeah.
So then at that point I was like, okay, I need to be able to learn to be my own Zillow and not be relying on these third parties. So then I just completely personally just stopped Zillow altogether until in our market, they switched fully to Zillow Flex. So now we don't even have Premier's not an option. It's only Zillow Flex. There's goods, bads, you got to pay, 35% referral fee on every single one of them, but they're all, they're live transfer calls. Essentially it's just sign calls, so with your guys' Zillow leads with Zillow Premier today, is it, mainly online inquiries coming in? Is it live transfers? Is it a combination of both?
It's a combination. We get live transfers and online leads that just email to us.
Okay. So then, what does that process look like? And I know that you said that, okay, we're following up, we're emailing, we're calling, and following up, but I'm sure long-term with that, but what have you found as far as an overall process versus an online inquiry versus live transfer to be able to convert those at the highest level? Because again, with a higher price lead source like this, if our conversions aren't solid, it's very difficult to make a good ROI.
It is. And, every time I think about getting rid of it, I'll get like a $2 million lead that closes. And I'm like, oh, they got me. They keep pulling me back in. So, but our follow-up source on our live calls is, we work with our agents. Hi, this is Mickey Ramey. I'm a Zillow Premier agent, a local agent in Charleston. Can I show you this home at 123 Main Street in person or virtually today or tomorrow? So every time a lead comes in, our agents are trained. Hi, I'm Mickey. I'm a Zillow Premier agent, a local realtor in Charleston. So we've got our scripts that we say as soon as the live calls come in. And then a lot of the online leads that come in just through email, we will call immediately and keep calling for 7 days. And then we'll go into an every other day mode until day 10. And then we've got auto text and email that follows up, and then it kicks back to our ISA if one of the agents haven't been able to reach that person in 10 days.
Yep. No, I love it. Yep. Yeah. And I appreciate you breaking down that. Cause I think what agents need is, cause we all hear that, oh, you got to follow up more, but then they're like, okay, well, what do I say and how frequent, right? And so that's why I like to, break that stuff down. So I love that. So, so then, I'm curious with, okay, so you've got these two divisions, you got your team division, and then you got, the traditional brokerage side, at what point did you decide to start also growing the brokerage side, and what's kind of the different focuses between the two?
So the independent agents that are in my brokerage have other jobs. Usually I've got somebody who's in my brokerage who's just a friend of mine that has a different job, some folks that are semi-retired. That section of my business is not really who I hire for anymore. They've just been with me for years. So, and it's also for members of my team that have decided they don't like the regulations of a team and how we have Monday morning call, Friday education, how you have to work to do 2 closings a month, how you need to stay caught up in your CRM. If they've been hired to do that, but then they start to not like that requirement of the systems that I want everybody to do, then sometimes they'll just say, well, I'm going to keep my license with the brokerage and I'll let you know when I'm ready to take leads again, and be on the team again. So it's kind of the bench from the team, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love it. I run the same way, right. And it's nice too, because then on the flip side of that, sometimes we get agents on the team side that build up their own book of business, referral business, they become a top producer. And it's like, hey, now maybe they're ready to start their own team.
Yeah.
And, I realized before I had a non kind of team division for them to do that, I was like, they just kept leaving. Eventually I couldn't retain that top talent.
Yeah, I definitely have some folks that are headed for that, for building their own team for sure.
Yep. Love it. So then, all right. So, you talked about with your team, and I can see why you're so successful, because, you have a dedicated process, you train your people on that process, but then you hold them accountable to that process. And it's like, every team leader that I talk with that is struggling and not getting an ROI or losing money on this, like they're falling short on one of those. And usually it's all three, so, what do you do and how do you do it to, keep that ongoing training, and then, to hold them accountable as far as inspecting what you expect, so those expectations continue to be met?
Yeah, that is the beauty of my ISA. Every Monday and Friday, she checks and makes sure we're a task-based team. So she'll set tasks, and the agent set tasks for themselves to follow up with our leads. And if you're behind on your tasks on Monday or Friday, you don't get any new leads. So you can get caught up, and you can text the ISA and say, hey, I'm caught up, check my CRM. I'm all caught up. I'm ready to start taking leads again. But that's pretty much the requirement. She really helps me stay on top of that.
So at what point do you have to kind of have that, okay, maybe they've been cut off. Yeah, that, come to Jesus. All right, like, hey, we got to have a conversation. Either you're going to do this or we got to slide you over to this other department.
Yes. So we will have people stay on the team if they've got some life situation where it's like, I am passionate about having a female real estate team. A lot of us have babies. My oldest baby's 21 now. My youngest is 9. But I am very supportive of working moms. I've always been a working mom. So, if it's something like that, if you had a baby, you need a couple of months downtime, you're still on the team. We just are waiting until you get, your new normal figured out. That's really been our situation right now. I haven't had anybody recently that is not performing and doesn't want to get back to those performance levels. It's usually a talk where they're like, okay, I need to work on this. Okay, I'll do it. Or they just tell me, they're like, I am ready to not be on the team right now. I need to be an independent contractor. I can't handle the accountability right now.
Yeah. So is the team and the brokerage side both just women only?
No, I have men.
Okay.
I have guys in my company. Everybody, I was like, I am not doing reverse sexism, I promise.
Yeah.
No, but I have several men in the company. But on my team, I'm just very passionate about training females in real estate. So like, that's what I want to do. And if there's a guy who I think would be awesome for our team, I definitely will interview and add him. It's just right now, I'm just really passionate about working with not necessarily younger women either. Some are older than I am.
Yep. No, I think it's awesome. I know today we're in a kind of a sensitive time in society where people get, but I think, niching down and knowing, who you can help and, culture and all of that. I love it. So, all right. So, this year, really what started about 18 months ago as cost of capital started going up, but transaction volume for 17 months straight has been down, now back to 2008 levels. And it's just continuing. We're most unaffordable time to be alive as a human being in United States history, most unaffordable time to acquire real estate as well. But you guys are growing. What is what are you doing now during these harder times to pivot to grow? And when I heard a stat from an AR the other day that the average realtor's business is down 40% this year versus last, so what does that look like for you guys?
It makes me really proud of our team. Our market is down 22% at our last look at the stats year to date. So we're down 22%. But again, our team had more closings last month than we did the previous year. So I am just very passionate about seeing opportunity in down markets. I started the business in 2008, that was a down market, and I've had nothing but growth since. So I am very passionate about growing. And now I'm learning that I had a team of 5 for a long time. But then when I had 2 of those 5 move out of town unexpectedly, like it just kind of happened, especially 2020, everybody was re-examining their lives. So I had just turnover after turnover in 2019 and 2020. And so I decided I'm going to have to get more agents. If I get close to a team of 10 and 2 people leave, I don't feel sucked back into the business. So now I'm very passionate about keeping a team of at least 10 agents, and hopefully, growing that number closer to 20, I think would be great. At some point, I might get out of production. I still like being in production. But I've heard from you and other people that like having a team of about 20 or more is an okay time to get out of production. So I'm, looking to that in the future.
Yeah. I mean, at least for me and for most that I talk to, it's, where the business gets really, not that it's not fun. I mean, I've loved each stage, and there's times where, just like you mentioned, like I got burnt out of working with buyers. I mean, there's times of that where it wasn't so enjoyable anymore, but it's really nice to get to that position where it's, hey, if I do sell, it's because I choose to sell, not because I have to sell for revenue. It's, depending on the profit model, I mean, determines agent count for that. But yeah, to your point, I was this way too. So I get where people's mindset goes with it, but it's, I think most team leaders go through this. Oh, I want a small, high producing team, and tell you, and all of a sudden you have 2 top producers leave you and 30% of your business is gone overnight. You realize how vulnerable you are. And you're like, okay, now I get and understand why people go bigger with this.
Yeah, I do. But yeah, I actually had that experience for years, like for 2 years solid. I was just turnover. And it just drove me crazy. So now I'm like, if we get a couple more people, and it helps our agents too, because if somebody goes on vacation, there's more than one person to cover for them while they're out. So, we've got several people to cover for each other. We have plenty of people to be able to hold open houses. So there's a lot of benefit from having at least 10 and growing.
Yep. Yeah. So then, all right. So, I mean, really from like a strategy standpoint, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't sound like you guys are doing a whole lot different from a strategy standpoint than you've done over the last couple of years. You're just really kind of retaching the fundamentals. We're going to work this much harder. We're going to fall this much harder, like just with the understanding of the market that we're in and transaction volume. But it's not like you're, massively shifting lead sources or strategies there. Is that correct?
You are absolutely correct. We're just going a little deeper into what's working. And okay. I think that is really important, and something I lost sight of when the market got really busy in the last 2 years is I wasn't focused on growing business in the areas where I had started my business, like with the doctor things. I need to get back into that. If I do those things consistently, I can grow that. There's so much room for opportunity within that niche that I already do. We have a medical school here. We have a dental school here. We have nursing. We have law school. There's so many opportunities for people to be educated, and schools love for you to come in. And I'm a teacher by nature. So people love for you to come in and educate their staff or their school about finance.
Yeah. And what's great about that too, and really niching down, in those, specific fields is, even if we do go into recessionary time frame, job security is there. It's not like there's such a shortage for medical. There's always job security, right? So, and then I'd have to imagine too with the affordability, because if you look at kind of like the average middle class, even lower middle class has kind of been priced out for the most part of this market. But with, with your niche, with your doctors, they have the means, the incomes, because it's kind of the upper middle class, the affluent, they're really able to transact today.
Yeah, so it definitely helps with that. And affordability is one thing that really concerns me, just as, as a mom. Like, I was on Facebook commenting with one of my friends that's my age, and he's like, where Charleston's become unaffordable. Where are my kids going to live if I want them to live near me? And so it's really hard for first-time home buyers. But I just think a lot of planning as a first-time home buyer, young person, is absolutely what it's going to take. You're going to have to save. You're going to have to plan. You're going to have to not get your dream home when you're 24 years old.
Yep. Yeah. Do you, I know none of us have a crystal ball, but do you see this continuing for some time, like with where we're at, or how do you see this thing shaking out?
Our market in the South I hope, pretty insulated from a lot of things that are going on. Back in the financial crisis of 2008, our market's very cyclical, so it took a big downturn. Here, this change is different. It's really population focused, and our growth in population is fundamental in real estate. Like, our population is growing here, so our real estate is obviously going to increase in value, and our inventory is going to stay low until there's a population shift in our area, is basically what I see.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So then, through this journey, what have been some of the biggest learning experiences? I don't like to necessarily call them failures, because I look at it's only a failure if you quit, right? You're either winning, succeeding, or you're learning, right? So what have been, some of the biggest learning experiences that maybe you wished you would have, with hindsight being 2020, wished you would have known that would have maybe saved you some pain?
Oh my gosh, I wish I had joined a team when I first started. I thought that I was just going to do it on my own, learn it all on my own. And I would have been where I am now so much faster if I had joined a team. I just tried to learn everything by myself. And my big change came when I went to my first Zillow conference, and I would, listen to these other people. I was doing, I think, 30 transactions a year when I went to my first big national real estate conference with Zillow. And I was like, oh, I'm crushing it, 30 deals a year. And then I would hear these people doing 50 and 100 and 500. I was like, how in the world are they doing 500 transactions a year? That's crazy. And I also got past needing to do everything on my own. Like, now, if I am coordinating your transaction, something bad's going to happen. Like, my transaction coordinator, I am basically her assistant. When it goes under contract, I'm like, please tell me what you need me to do. Otherwise, I'll have no idea. So I just think really passing responsibility to the people that you need to pass responsibility to, and realizing like how big you can grow is just such an asset.
Now, did you ever struggle with, letting go with that delegation? Because so many have it, because we can all be OCD kind of control freaks,
Yeah. I was a control freak in the beginning, and now it's so funny to look back at that. You probably do the same thing. Like, if you're, looking at me coordinating all the transactions, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so much worse at that than the person I've hired. She's so much better than I am. And I think the same thing with the buyer agents now. Like, oh my gosh, they are so much more patient and better at this whole process than I am right now. So just seeing the best in others and knowing that you're hiring people that are doing better than you would at that particular job is so important.
Yep. No, I love it. So in addition to creating this amazing real estate business, you also have 4 children, married, you're also really involved with your church. And what has been the key? Because it's so easy to allow this business, and really any business, but real estate business, it's, not necessarily a job. It can become a lifestyle. It's so easy to let it consume all these other aspects of our life. What have you done to be able to balance, being able to have this life outside of here as well, and being able to be involved in your church and doing all these other things?
Yeah. And I will tell young moms out there starting the business, I think one of my best ways to get involved in real estate was to do that. Like nanny real estate assistant was a really good decision. It is not a long lasting position, but it is a band-aid to get you through trying to grow a team or get an assistant or something like that. So I would encourage people to think about that. When I have 4 children, my oldest is 21, and then I have a 17-year-old, and I have a 15-year-old and a 9-year-old. So big age range. It's a lot of fun. We all went out on a fishing boat trip yesterday in Charleston because, life is short and you just got to enjoy those moments with your family. But the cool thing for me, and hopefully people listening, my 21-year-old now is a licensed real estate agent. And so he is dealing with my all-female real estate team right now this summer before he goes back to Clemson in like 2 weeks. But the fact that my oldest wants to join me in what I do for a living makes me think I didn't screw it up too bad, right? Like I did okay if he wants to join me and work with me. So that's cool. And then, I really try to take time being with my kids. You're never going to get those things back. You're never going to get those moments back with them. So we take time to do fun things. They still think I'm a workaholic because, at night after we've had family time, I still like wrap up my emails and stuff. So that is, a big thing. We go on a medical mission trip every year because I want my kids to know that life is not like it is in Charleston, South Carolina, in our, well-to-do home that we have. Like people struggle in life. People struggle. They don't have options. They can't travel from one country to the next. We went to Nicaragua in June to do a medical mission trip, and a lot of people in Nicaragua can't leave. They don't give visas to travel around and check out the world. They don't have realtors there because that's not a job description. You don't get to choose the house that you're in. You just kind of build your own house or live in a family house. So I'm very passionate about just being thankful for every minute with family and with what we have here. We're just so blessed. Real estate's blessed me a ton.
Yeah, no, I love it. So then, so it sounds like you're very intentional. You have a lot of awareness of, hey, these years, with young ones, whatnot, are going to always be here. So making sure to not miss out on those. But it also sounds to me like, okay, hey, you have time blocked for your family time. But then, okay, hey, like in the evenings, maybe I got to get back to a little bit of work, but I'm not just kicking my feet up and entertaining. And like you're really intentional with time and systems. And, would you say that has been, one of the big keys to allow you to do both?
Yes, absolutely. Like we always try to invite other families over. We're really intentional about that. So we've got the pastor of my church is coming over tonight to hang out with us because he and his family are really sweet, but we just really try to plan time with other families and with our own family and with my team. I have a good time with my team. We're always trying to figure out ways to go out and go to, a happy hour, out to dinner, just have fun together. So those things are really important to me.
Yep. So then long-term vision, like where do you see, this in 5 years, 10 years, like what is that kind of longer term vision for you?
Yeah. So with having a 21-year-old that is a licensed real estate agent, I would love for him to, work with me and think about growing the team. Young people have a great way of pouring a different perspective into what's already good to make it great. So I'm excited to see where that leads. If he wants to, if he doesn't want to, wants to do something else, that's fine too. I just want him to be happy. But for me right now, I love being in production. If that ever changes, I want to get out quickly. I want to call me, Joshua, call me and say, you're not enjoying it, get out. Because the worst mistake people make is to stay in it when they're just not really serving the community well. So right now I love it. I've got my sellers this year are some of my favorite people that I've ever worked with. So right now I'm in it, but I would like in the next, within 10 years to be out of production.
Yep. Yep. Love it. So yeah, it's, cause I've got three, kids so my oldest is, 15, my youngest is 10. But I'm always telling them like, and I try to not, because like you said, like I want them to be happy. I want them to go whatever career path they want, but I'm always planting those seeds of like, dude, you're just going to come work with me. Like, we're just going to, like, it's like, so has that been, was this just, you just at your son's choice, or was this something that, you've kind of encouraged over the years, or is he just like, hey man, I want to do this thing?
Well, I heard him tell this to somebody else that wasn't me, and I was just in the room. So now I know, right? He was like, I really like mom and dad, the lifestyle they have, the way that they live, the way they're able to give back. And I want that. And I see the work that it takes to do that. I'm like, oh gosh, that was, time well spent. But it's important to him. Like even on just a financial level, he has learned to play golf while he's in college, and he loves golf. And I'm like, that requires a good job. So, he wants a certain lifestyle to live, but he also sees how we have achieved a lifestyle that I really am proud of and thankful for, but it gives me a lot of margin to give back to our community, to do mission trips, to give to people in need. Like I really like having financial margin to be able to give to people that are in need. So, I think he sees part of that too. And he always had to show houses with me when he was little. He has been known to do landscaping at my rental properties and cleaning. I make my kids work.
Yeah, no, that's so awesome. I love it. So, so one last question for you, Mickey, but before we jump into that, if anybody's watching or listening, if they want to continue following you, we're all real estate professionals watching, listening to this podcast. So maybe they have a referral for somebody moving to, Charleston. Where are the best places to follow you, to get in touch with you?
Yep. So you can connect with me on Instagram. Moving with Mickey is my Instagram, and just text me. My cell phone's 843-478-1684.
Yep. Awesome. All right. So if Mickey today, knowing everything you know now throughout this whole experience, if Mickey today could maybe go back to your younger self at 2008, when you're first, starting this, new real estate career journey, or at whatever age you want to insert yourself into that conversation. But knowing everything you know now, and we're able to give yourself a couple pieces of advice that you feel to fast forward to this trajectory that you're on, like, what would that look like today?
So I definitely would have joined a team earlier. I think that is a big deal. I look back, I am 100% thankful that I bought a house when I was a 24-year-old. So I am very passionate about, not just for me, but for encouraging other 20-somethings to buy property. I know it's become very difficult to afford, but I'm very passionate about that. I don't know if I would have gotten into real estate earlier. I just very much valued my time as a teacher and a high school guidance counselor. I think those were just refining moments in my life where I learned some good life lessons about how to work and work ethic that translate into being helpful to people in real estate. So I'm thankful. Glad I would have joined a team earlier though. So any of y'all that are not on a team, call the closest team leader that you like and interview.
Yeah. Why do you think more don't do it? Or why didn't you maybe do it? Was it just the thought of the commission splits, or just the confidence that you could figure it all out on your own?
So I think it just wasn't a thing as much, back in 2008. Like I remember interviewing with another, or being recruited, not interviewing. I was recruited by another real estate company. I was talking about how at some point I'd like to grow a team. And at that point, he was like, oh, teams, people were doing that a couple of years ago. They're not doing it as much now that the market is changing in this recession that we're having. So it wasn't a thing as much then, but now it is. So take the opportunity. If you're not on a team, get on one and learn from the team leader and other team members.
Yep. Love it. Such powerful stuff. And those watching and listening, we truly appreciate you being here. Truly appreciate your support. And Mickey, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to be here. This has been an honor and been a lot of fun.
Thank you. It's been great. Thank you so much.
Yep, 100%. All right, you guys, we will see you next time. Peace.
Bye.